Coming up, a new knife from Cold Steel. It's an old new knife, but it's new to me. We're going to take a look at that. I have a new design bouncing around between me and Tim Kell. I'm excited to show you. And then we're going to show 10 clip point knives. These are not quite Bowies, they're clip points. I'm Bob DeMarco. This is the Knife Junkie Podcast.
Welcome to the Knife Junkie Podcast, your weekly dose of knife news and information about knives and knife collecting. Here's your host, Bob the Knife Junkie DeMarco.
Welcome back to the show. One of my favorite comments from this past week was from Cody Broadway, 8496, and this was on the Norman Tactical, that's Tate Buzzard, on that interview. And he said, I love the people you pick to put on the podcast, Bob. I live in Fayetteville, North Carolina. So to know that this young guy is familiar with A.G. Russell really warmed my heart. He's gone now, and Bob Dozier is getting old. I saw him about a month ago, and he's not getting around as well. Tom, and Weir, I put in question mark, is still kicking ass, and his son is as well. I call myself lucky to be in this hobby and to live where I do. I very much respect and miss the greats. Well, I'm very happy to hear that, Cody Broadway. That is that you appreciate the people I bring on. And you mentioned a couple of real legendary knife makers, Tom Weir, Bob Dozier, A.G. Russell, in the context of Tate Buzzard, a young man who's carrying on the tradition of beautiful, awesome knives in your region being made. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate your kind words on my guest selection. There are so many great knife makers out there. All you have to do is some trolling on Instagram, and you'll find that it's kind of an endless supply of awesome knife makers. All right, that said, let us now get to a pocket check.
What's in his pocket? Let's find out. Here's the Knife Junkie with his pocket check of knives.
Front right pocket tonight, today I should say, is the Emerson Tiger. The Emerson Tiger is a great knife that I carried all the time when I first got it. This is a really cool clip point blade, which is kind of on theme for the show today. Really cool clip point blade from Ernest Emerson. I remember when this one came out. That's the CQC 13 handle with a different blade. I remember when this came out, this was Ernest Emerson's EDC for a long time. This was my EDC for a long time when I bought it, and I haven't had it out in a while. And I had a party the other night to go to. A good friend turned 50, so I went to his party, and I don't know why, but I felt like I needed some sort of classic in my pocket, and this at this point is a modern classic, the Emerson Tiger. What a great knife. Man, I love this. I got it on the secondary market and have never turned back. Now, it's an Emerson, so it's on my no-sell list. Second, another clip point. I had the new Jack Wolf Knives Primo Jack in my pocket. Primo meaning the Spanish word for cousin. And that's because this is the cousin of the Big Bro Jack and the Little Bro Jack. It is a sleeve board pattern folder with a beautiful descending edge clip point, long pulls on the side, and of course, this one is a bolster lock and a front flipper. Not being great at the front flipper, I prefer these long pulls here. The long pulls can be used as middle finger flickers. You'll see long pulls on a lot of old school fancy pants slip joint knives, and I love seeing it translated over into this modern flipper design because it works great for that middle finger flick. So I had this in my back left pocket next to the old bandana today. For emotional support, I had to get, not for emotional support, but this is my fixed blade knife. I had to get away from the clip point and the curved edge because I don't want to be a one-trick pony all day long. So I had my Dirk Pinkerton custom fire ant. And no, your eyes do not deceive you. This is a triple-edged Warncliffe style blade, or maybe modified sheep's foot, whatever you want to call it. But it's got that straight edge, a downward point, and a third edge right up front. This thing is so cool, so wicked. I bought this in person from Dirk at Blade Show. I think it was 2023 now. And I love this rich light handle, nicely contoured, just a beautiful piece in D2 steel. This one I like to carry appendix, and ordinarily I like nicely curved handles up there to kind of snugly hug my belly. But this one, for some reason, just fits in that line that goes from the side of your belly into your crotchal area, whatever that's called. Well, I guess that's the appendix line. I don't know. This fits perfectly in there due to its straightness and the length of the blade. I do have on the sheath a piece of not car tire, bike tire. Oftentimes you'll see I have Ranger bands, but a good alternative to Ranger bands is if you have an inner tube to a bicycle tire. It fits nicely over most sheaths, and it in this case, it holds in the DCC clip because I could only, due to the spacing of the holes, fit one screw on there. So it keeps it from coming out, but also the rubbery texture of it keeps it from moving around in the waistband. So it's like a perfect fit there. Lastly, for emotional support, I had the Vendetta from DC Blades. I got this a few weeks ago from Justin of Tier 1 Gear Reviews / DC Blades, the designer of this knife, and I haven't looked back. I've had this on me pretty much every day, whether in the front right pocket, in the main roll, or in the back left pocket for left hand tactical response carry, or just emotional support. I love this thing with its beautiful micro milling on the titanium and that silver foil carbon fiber, those inlays, beautiful. And then it's not aftermarket, but it's a removable wave-like pocket catch on there. So this thing is not only beautiful, it's very tactical and also pretty practical. I'd say if you remove the wave-like opener, you can use this thumb swale a lot easier, and it can be for your fingers too. You can be opening up boxes all day and doing all sorts of practical stuff with that tactical knife. All right, so this is what I had on me today. Let me know what you had on you. Today it was the Emerson Tiger, the Jack Wolf Knives Primo Jack. This is brand new for February 2025, so get it while it's hot. The Fire Ant from Dirk Pinkerton. This is a custom, a handmade Dirk Pinkerton. He's amazing at the grinder. And then, of course, I had the DC Blades Vendetta. Wicked, wicked carry, if I do say so my damn self. All right, next up, I just wanted to show these off real quick. I finally had a chance to carry these. Now, I've carried the pen a couple of times. These are both from Regiment Blades. They were sent to me by from Al Salviti of Regiment Blades. He is a self-defense expert. He does a lot of training of Tier 1 guys in the knife, and then other guys, SWAT dudes and that kind of thing. But he has his company, Regiment Blades, and he has this very iconic design in the low vis. But this one is 100% non-metallic. So you've got a beautiful G10 blade, really nicely checkered and knurled G10 handle scales. And those bolts, those are also plastic. So I was in a non-permissive environment this weekend, all weekend, NPE as they call it. And I carried this. I also had the pen on me. And I was fine. Now, I will say I did not go through a metal detector. If I did, and I knew I was going to, I probably wouldn't have this pen. Most security guards are wise to the tactical pen thing, and this having that ring really reads tactical. But this all day long, unless they're really patting you down and feeling you up, it hides very easily under the belt, and this just gave me a sense of security. I was in an indoor space with tens of thousands of people. It was unreal. And so I had that with me just in case. You never know. And then this I had on the second day when I knew that there were no metal detectors, and it rides very nicely in the pocket. I didn't clip it. I just had it north to south like this. And that ring kind of keeps it from turning and flopping over. And just so you know, this pen screws off here, and you can flip it around. You can see how it's threaded on both sides. On this side, it's a tungsten glass breaker. That's how you keep it normally. And then on the inside, it's a Fisher Space Pen, gravity pen insert. So you get great writing. I love those pen inserts. And then you get glass breaking noggin knocking capability on this side. So really, really happy to have these. Thank you, Al, but also just happy to have them on me because I believe it's our natural right, not a government given right. It's our natural God-given right to be able to defend our bodies. We are born with some weapons in our hands and our elbows and our knees and our heads, but we got to be able to use them. And it's nice to have a weapon like, animals are born with claws and big teeth. We are not. We're born with big brains and opposable thumbs, which should allow us the ability to carry something like this on us at all times in case someone gets out of order. All right, so that was very cool. I just wanted to show those off and let you know that I've carried them and I love them. They carry great. Lastly, in this little section before we get to Life Knife News, I want to show you this design that I sent to Tim Kell. He just put it in CAD and we're talking about it. I'm not saying that this is in the works. I hope it is, but it's not my company. And I'm also just saying that this is, it's such a thrill to see it in CAD. So this is called the Fighter, and it's pretty easy name to remember, and you can see why. This is a Yatagan or Beshkab's inspired design by me, and it's a double-edged. I will probably remove those giant sharpening choils so they don't get hung up on things as you retract the blade, but it is a double edge, as you can see. And then you can also see a little bit, if you're looking at this and not in the audio podcast, on the handle, you can see another handle sort of echoed below the main handle. That is the Agent 001 or the Agent handle in general. So you can see the scale difference. This is a bigger knife. That would be about a 5.75 inch blade and about a nearly 5 inch handle, but like a 4 3/4 inch handle. Glass breaker on the back. You got the jimping, and you've got that downward swooping edge, but it's not a recurve. The recurve cutting capability comes from the angle of the blade to the handle. So you don't have to worry about, some people don't like sharpening recurves. That would not be an issue with this, but you would still get a similar cutting power out of it. So this is my Fighter design, and Tim loves it. And who knows, maybe someday soon it'll start being made, but this is not a sure thing at all. And I know he's shown this to his patrons and they seem to love it. So who knows, maybe there is a future for this knife and this design will have some legs. Of course, I certainly hope it does. All right. Well, thank you very much for that. We're going to go to Knife Life News in a second. But before we do, I'd like to urge you to check out Patreon. That is a creator subscription service that allows you to support creators you like. And hopefully you like me. If you've lasted this long, you probably are into knives at the very least. Quickest way to go check out what we have to offer you. Of course, you're helping us. We help you back. You can scan this QR code on the screen, or you can go to TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon and check out our 3 tiers of support. I'll repeat that complicated address again. That is TheKnifeJunkie.com/Patreon.
Hey, knife makers. Tired of paying too much for your online store? LaunchCard gives you everything you need for just $27 a month. Sell as many blades as you want with our drag and drop store builder. No tech skills needed. You get all the good stuff. Secure checkout, back in stock alerts, and easy product reviews to show off your happy customers. Plus, your store looks great on phones and computers. Already using Shopify? Knife makers are switching to LaunchCard because it just works better. Try it free for 14 days at TheKnifeJunkie.com/launch. That's TheKnifeJunkie.com/launch.
You're listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. And now here's the Knife Junkie with the Knife Life News.
One of my very first jobs as a teenager was as a caddy on a golf course. We had a country club behind the woods. I'd have to walk through the woods about a half mile and then climb over the fence, and boom, I was in my first working space. And the first job I had there was as a men's locker room attendant, which can be a dark affair indeed. The next year I decided to caddy, and though I didn't make as much money, it was much nicer to be out on the links. I know a lot of people make a lot of money caddying, but I didn't because I kind of sucked at it. But anyway, if I were to caddy these days, I would definitely get this first thing. This is from Tops Knives. Now, Leo Espinoza, the head of Tops Knives, is not only a knife nut, he's a golf nut, and he has created a new divot tool. We probably all know what a divot tool is. It's that two-tine prong thing that you kind of pucker up once you hit the ball, and you need to kind of fix the green for others and fix the rough for others. You put your patch in there. You get the idea. You use it to right the wrongs you've done on the grass you've golfed on. See, that's how good a caddy I was. I can't even talk about it. But Leo Espinoza came out with this 3-putt, it's called, and it's this cool tool. And if you are familiar with Tops Knives, you'll see, just if you squint your eyes, that this must be built on the Mini Scandi blank. It does look a lot like the Mini Scandi knife. But this is a two-tine tool here, and this one of the cool things on the other side of the tool here, you'll see range finding marks, so you can use it to kind of help you with your figuring out your range on the golf range. Figuring out your distances and such. Not sure how that works. I think it's at an arm's length. But I'm not sure. I know I've seen guys do that kind of stuff on a golf course. It's been many, many years. But another multifunctional aspect to this cool tool is that you can see there's a bottle opener there towards the tail end of the handle. And then there's a little spike that sticks out. Well, that's to scrape your cleats. So if you want to go flex on the golf course, I'm sure a lot of you guys like to golf. It's one of those activities that people who have a lot of attention span and a lot of time and what do you call it? Tolerance for frustration do. We have a lot of golfers in my family, and I'm certainly not one of them. But this one is available now, 1095 blade steel, and I'm serious. Like, what a cool flex it would be to have that thing clipped to your little plaid shorts while you're out there. That's the Tops 3-putt. Next, this one is from Taylor Martin. Taylor Martin, you know him, Best Damn EDC. Seems like a very cool guy, and I don't know if he's filming in his house, but I love the look of his man cave. Anyway, he's got a new one coming out from Civivi called the Clingman. The Clingman. It's a 3-inch Nitro V clip point blade with a long swedge. I think it's beautiful. And as a matter of fact, I just so happen to have one coming to me from Civivi. They sent out, every once in a while, they'll send me a thing. Hey, do you want to check something out? And I'm like, yes, because I love Civivi and SendCut. So they'll be sending me this one, and I'm really happy to have it. I like Taylor Martin. I don't watch all of his videos, but whenever I do, I'm always impressed, and I like the way he thinks about everyday carry stuff. This one is a beautiful clip point with a long swedge, as I said, a front flipper with thumb studs, and it's a liner lock. It's got a couple of different materials. You can get it with G10 micarta. So the G10, I think that's what they're sending me, has a black blade with maroon G10, my favorite color combination. And coincidentally, those were my high school colors. And then there's micarta. That's the dark green micarta like this with a black blade. And then there's that Giroberta wood, or the wood which cannot be pronounced. They will have that coming out. So a beautiful knife from Civivi. I think we'll have the pick up in a second. This one is coming later in the month, or late February of 2025. Front flipper and thumb studs. Not sure if I mentioned that. There it is. Man, is that beautiful. And I have to say, I don't have mine yet. That's a 3-inch blade. It would be cool to have a 4-inch blade too. And I know Civivi does not shrink away from the large blades, but I think this is a really good looking knife. Hats off to Taylor Martin and his design sense. One thing I want to mention, I love the downward raked edge of the straight portion of that edge. Man, that's going to be great. That's like a lot of sort of more traditional type knives like this. And that gives you not only great shearing power, like the power of a recurve basically, but also it gives you a lot of sharpening life. You can start sharpening through that belly, and even if you, which is where you use that knife mostly, is on that belly. And even if you remove a lot of metal from there, you're still going to have a pretty darn good angle for cutting there. So looking forward to the Klingman from Civivi. I'll be showing it to you here shortly. All right, next up is from K-Bar. Past couple of weeks, we've shown you a few K-Bars. We had the Dust series of fixed blades, and then another that the name escapes me. But this one is a first responder knife. It's called the Koitu. The Koitu. Now, this is a reworking of the Koipu. The Koipu knife came out in 2018. First responder knife, a heavy-duty, a bolstered affair with a liner lock. Well, they've changed it up for this to create this affordable, heavy-duty carry folder for first responders. This one has a flipper, a standard flipper tab. It has a crossbar lock, GFN handles with a nice patterning for gription, and then it has a glass breaker on the very tail end, just south of the pocket clip, and a seat belt cutter. That's one of those divots you see in the handle with a little razor blade embedded. Now, you can't really touch it with your finger, but you can definitely slip it over a seat belt and cut it in a pinch. Now, we're talking about you're a first responder and first there at a car accident, and you can unzip someone out of a seatbelt. That said, this is not just for first responders. This, to me, with its relative low cost, would be great as a car knife. That's AUS 8 blade steel, which is an upgrade from the Koipu's 15 CR blade steel. So not too exotic. It's a good utility knife that if you lose it, it's not going to be the end of the world. But it really might come in handy in a pinch in your own car, whether it's to save someone else or yourself. So why not check it out? Drop point. And this one's 5.6 ounces and available now. All right, lastly, another one from Tops. Man, they've been coming out like gangbusters. We've talked about a bunch of different Tops here. This one is their annual employee knife design contest winner. And this one is for 2025. If you're watching this sometime in the future, it's called the Ivy, spelled I-V-I-E. And if you're looking at it, man, it's beautiful. I love this little knife. Looks great. Designed by employee Cody Ivy. So IVIE is the gentleman's last name and the name of the blade itself. That's a 2.5-inch blade, speaking of blades, of 1095 blade steel. So they're up to their old tricks at Tops Knives using the tried and true 1095, which I love so much. And it is a neck knife, as you can tell from the size of that finger choil. It's a 2-finger knife, and it's got that black micarta on it. 3.9 ounces, so a hefty little chunker for the size. Kydex, 2 fingers. I think it's awesome. It's going to hang really nicely under the shirt. Won't be hard to see. It won't print too much. But you've got utility all day long with that beautiful and tough little Wharncliffe blade. This one is also available now. So go check it out at Tops Knives or any of your favorite knife purveyors. They should have it. All right, still to come on the Knife Junkie podcast, the state of the collection. And then we're going to look at 10 beautiful clip point fixed blades. But first, I want to urge you to download this show to your favorite podcast app. It's something you can do and listen on the go. I understand most people don't have the time to sit down for a full hour-long YouTube video, or even if they do have that time, they want to fit in at least 50 shorts in addition to whatever else they're watching. So download it, and you can still get this information downloaded passively into your brain while you're driving, washing the dishes, shoveling snow, mowing the lawn, whatever it is. So be sure to do that, and we'll check in with you on all of these podcast apps. All right, coming up, the state of the collection.
Adventure Delivered, your monthly subscription for hand-picked outdoor, survival, EDC, and other cool gear from our expert team of outdoor professionals. TheKnifeJunkie.com/BattleBox.
And now that we're caught up with Knife Life news, let's hear more of the Knife Junkie podcast.
Okay, this is not something new in my collection. You know, I have plenty of Vaqueros. I have the old Vaquero Grande. I have the old El Hombre, the small version. I have the signature edition of this in the green and the black. I have the non-serrated version of this, but I didn't have just the plain serrated version of this in the stonewash blade and the black grivery. And since Lynn Thompson carries 3 of these on his person, in addition to his firearm and several other large knives, I had to show this off to you. This Voyager XL Vaquero, that refers to that recurve blade, that S-curve blade, with the serrations. This is Lynn Thompson's most trusted and most carried knife. He carries 3 of them, as I mentioned, and to him, this is his ultimate self-defense knife. I love it. I love it so much I had to get another one just to kind of round out my collection of Vaquero blades, because this thing is amazing. And I was always kind of shocked, bummed, and surprised that they never made a Vaquero version of the Recon 1. Why not? I mean, that's another opportunity to put out this beautiful blade on a more expensive knife, get it in more hands, also make more money. And also, why have they never made a fixed blade version of this since the Desperado, the one that got away? Do you remember the Desperado? Some of you old timers might. It had a rubbery kind of grivery handle that was egg shaped, and then it had a 5-inch version of this blade protruding out of it. So there's no way to disarm that sucker from your hand because the handle is completely encapsulated in the handle. Why don't they make a fixed blade version of this? Why? Why, I ask you? I mean, how cool would it be to have this in a 7-inch version, or, you know, an 8-inch full-fledged fighting knife? It would be so cool. But until they do, this will have to do. And I love this thing. I've been carrying it every day for the past week since I got it, or 6 days since I got it. And I really love it. If you need a do-everything kind of knife, I got to say the Voyager series cannot be beat. It's inexpensive. Most knives coming in around, from $50 to $70, and they have 6 different blade shapes. I'm gonna rattle this down. They have the Vaquero, they have the clip point, they have the Tanto, they have the drop point, and they have the Chris. 5 different blade shapes for this. In both the large, this is a 5.5-inch blade, and the small, the 4-inch blade. So you really cannot, for value to utility, you cannot beat them. Plus, it has the tried and true triad lock, still just about the strongest thing out there. So I wanted to show this off. And if you've ever been on the fence, get off that fence and go get yourself an AUS 10A Cold Steel Voyager. Doesn't matter which one. There's a bunch of them to choose from in 2 different sizes. So really, really psyched about this. All right. We are going to move on to clip point blades, but before we do, I want to show off a T-shirt that Jim just designed in his lab. This one, I love knives, and you can see it not only on that cool T-shirt, but there's a teddy bear, there's a beautiful looking baseball hat. So if you want to go out into public and get the conversation started, this is a great way to do it. I love knives. People are like, yeah, I kind of love knives too. It's like my "Ask Me About My Knife Collection" T-shirt. People will ask, people will say, I love knives. And then suddenly you'll see you have kindred spirits all about you. Just go to TheKnifeJunkie.com/shop. Check out this design and all the other designs we have there to offer. Jim is always working hard on these things. So go check him out. Not only because he works hard, but because he does awesome designs. So I love knives right here on the Knife Junkie podcast. All right, let's talk about clip point knives. But before we do, I want to show you what I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about Bowie knives. I know it's a thin line between clip point and a Bowie. And of course, most Bowies, not all, but most Bowies have a clip point. And if you don't know what that means, a clip point refers to, imagine this as a drop point where the edge just kind of either continues straight to the point or it drops down a little bit. A clip point refers to this portion here. Oftentimes called a swedge or a false edge. This is a bit of that front of the blade that's clipped out. And that is for penetration purposes. That is for back cut purposes if you're using it as a fighting knife. And A Bowie knife, the reason I say when we're talking about clip points coming up here, we're not talking about the Bowie, is that in general, Bowie knives refer to about a 1/4 inch thick, about 10 inches long. It varies. It gets much larger, but not too much smaller than 10 inches. Bowie knife is kind of a bigger knife, and it's an American classic, and I love them, and I talk about them all the time and show my my ever-growing collection of Bowies off to you. But this is not what I'm talking about today. I'm talking about clip points, so they are featuring that clip point shaped blade. Also, I am not talking about folders. I have a million of them. I've been carrying 2 of them all day long, and I don't have a million, but I have many. So I'm not talking about folders. I'm talking about fixed blades. And maybe the best way to start this conversation off is with one of the American classic clip point blades. It was used all during World War II and beyond, and they are coveted. I'm talking about Randall knives. And here I have the Randall 16-7 SP #1 fighter. Yep, just rolls off the tongue. Let me tell you what all this refers to. 16 refers to the handle, because the Randall number 16 is very frequently a dive knife, and it's got these finger choils in there, all 4 finger choils, and it has a different sort of drop point blade, traditionally with a serrated back edge, but this is a 16, and then 16-7. 7 refers to the blade length. So when you're looking at a Randall, that first number, the 16, for instance, is the model number. The second number after the dash is the blade length. And then this here is an SP #1 fighter. That's a special number 1. Number 1 refers to the blade. So this is a number 16 with a number 1 blade. The number 1 was the one that was used mostly during World War II. It's a clip point blade, definitely inspired by the Bowie knife, especially in terms of how you fight with this knife. You'll see oftentimes referred to the Randall fighting method. That's the mountain man method. So kind of in your hand like this with the clip down, and then you stab and do the old heave ho back. So that's what that divot on the back of the blade is for. But so this is a number 16 with a number 1 blade on it. That's I just gave you the long explanation, but I adore this knife, and I know I say that all the time. I pretty much love all of my knives, but this is one that I've always wanted. I've always wanted the number 1 blade, and I always wanted the number 14 attack handle. And the number 16 looks a lot like the number 14. So I basically got exactly what I wanted in this blade. Just so happens that if you order any Randall knife, Randall knives are custom ordered. You order them on the website. It's a 7-year wait. So if I went on there and I ordered this right now, it would be 2032 until I got this knife. However, there are a few what do you call it, authorized dealerships. AG Russell is one of them. Knife Center is another, and I got both my Randalls, this one and the number 27, from Knife Center. I was just happened to be lucky and just happened to have the amount of money to buy it at the time. They're certainly not inexpensive knives. But what I love about Randall knives is that many of them have the clip point. Many of them have that swedge, and they are all sharpened. All of them. They're all sharpened swedges, and I think that that's the coolest thing ever. I mean, even when it's not practical, it's sharpened on the back. Like there are a few more utility hunting, skinning type knives, and they still have that back edge sharp. And seeing things through the lens through which I look, I absolutely love that. So I wanted to show this off first because it is one of the actual, what am I trying to say? One of the most legendary blades in my collection. And I have real pride of ownership owning this knife. And it is an exemplary clip point blade. Now with these finger choils here, not as comfortable as some other handle styles to hold like this. That said, you could hold it like this and hit on stuff with that clip for a long time without it starting to bother you here. But yeah. And then you can see on that brass guard, every once in a while, I need to polish it up. And lastly, they all come with such incredibly beautiful leather sheaths. Now, if I'm correct, which I believe I am, there are different companies that have made the sheaths for them in the past. And I only know that because when I've looked on collectors' websites, they'll stipulate who the sheath maker is. But for whole long years of time, a certain sheath maker will make sheaths and stuff. If I'm wrong, which I have been in the past, it's not the strangest thing. Just ask my wife. You can drop it in the comments below and let me, straighten me out about the sheaths. Okay. Next clip point in this list is another classic. This is the Mac V SOG clip point, as envisioned and created by SOG Knives. This is the SOG Super Bowie. And here it is. It's a Super Bowie because it's a 7.5-inch blade as opposed to it's a 7-inch blade as opposed to the 6-inch blade of the normal SOG Bowie. They call it a Bowie. I don't necessarily, but it does have a pretty thick spine, and you've got that beautiful double-peaked Mac V SOG design. This knife design was first employed by the Mac V SOG group during the Vietnam War, and they did all sorts of. They were a Tier 1 operating group who did all sorts of clandestine maneuvers and such missions in Laos and Cambodia, I believe, when we weren't supposed to be in Laos or Cambodia. They were sneaking around in the jungle doing the work on behalf of our military and our government, and this knife was on them. Of course, not this knife in particular. It was a shorter model, but this design. And it's one of my favorites. I've had this one from since the early 2000s, late 90s. I can't remember exactly when I got it, but I do remember. Oh, it was definitely in the 2000s, actually, because I remember it was delivered to an office that I worked at in New York City. And I was psyched it got in because this was, they were starting to change their knife laws, and getting a knife like this was not, you couldn't get it everywhere. Now, most knife purveyors are wise to the laws, and you got to be careful. Some of the things you order, they won't deliver to Chicago or New York. Nice hollow ground Aus 8 blade on this. This used to be my travel knife. I used to take this with me. When my wife and I were a courting, we were in different cities, she in DC and myself in New York City. And this was always if the bus breaks down and rule of law breaks down on the way to DC, this will be the knife that gets me out of a pinch. Beautiful leather, very stout leather sheath. I have noticed that on the new ones, I got my brother a 6-inch version recently. Comes in the leather sheath, but the leather is not as nice, which is a bummer because my brother is a leather aficionado, and I would have loved if he could have gotten this leather sheath. It has a stone in it already, and this is a classic clip point blade, very well rendered by SOG Knives. I really highly recommend this knife, and I really wish, I say this all the time, SOG would go back to doing more of these, because they had a number of different models with the stacked leather handles that had history. They had a dagger like this. They had they had a number of them. All you got to do is look at some old Nut and Fancy videos from like 2008 to 2010. He had them all and showed them off, and they were absolutely beautiful. All right, next up. This one is one that inspired a lot of combat knives, and knives like this, I should say, inspired a lot of combat knives. This is the Buck 119. First of all, I love the sheath of the 119. This retention strap is so ridiculous, but it's great because this is a hunting knife, and you're going to be walking through a lot of brush, and this big retention strap is definitely going to hold this knife in on you. A classic hunting knife, but to me, since I don't hunt, I could see the applications. It's got a nice fat handle. You can see how fat the handle is. It extends to the width of the guard here. So you're not. It's a synthetic material, so it's a little slick, but it's wide enough. You're not going to lose this knife out of your hand with this bird's beak pommel and the width of this handle. when it's covered with blood and viscera and stuff that's all slippery because of the size and the ergonomics of it. You've got a beautiful hollow ground clip point blade here. That's a 0 ground swedge, which makes it excellent for the back cut, that sort of thing. So it's not a fighting knife per se, or at least it's not billed as such, but would make an outstanding fighting knife. Maybe you put a little traction tape on here or carve a groove or two in the handle, and it is going to be good to go. The 120 is a larger version of this, and this is 420 blade steel, as is frequently used by Buck, but it's very sharp, and these things are tried and true, used for years and years and years. This clip point blade is it's awesome. I love this one. This was a gift to me. I believe it was purchased at Walmart. You can get these at Walmart. This was purchased for me by the husband of a second cousin of my wife for my 50th birthday. So I haven't spoken to Nathan in many, many years, but well, I guess it's been about 3 years. But I always think of this knife and how cool it was that he got this for me, just knowing that I like knives, and he got me this. I love it. Oh, by the way, I love the short top quillion because it allows you to put your thumb on the blade without having to negotiate a tall guard there. So just a great knife and a great sheath. The Buck 119. I know a lot of people collect these things. Oh, slightly out of order. I meant to put this one right after the Super Bowie. Here's another SOG, and you don't hear that much on this channel, but here's another SOG. And man, I love this one. This is on me daily. I carry this one every day. This is because it's rides in my EDC bag. This is the SOG Seal Pup. So you can see the lineage between this and the MACV SOG Bowie in that double peaked design. It also has an AUS 8 hollow ground blade. Some of the earlier ones were AUS 6, and 6 is lower than 8, so not as good in terms of steel. That said, I know that a lot of Navy SEALs actually do carry this knife and have carried this knife in the past. And I hate to put it this way, but if it's good enough for a SEAL, it's definitely good enough for me, possibly good enough for you. I don't know what you do with your knives, but maybe you're cutting, sandblasting hose all the time and you need something that has better retention. But really, it's probably going to be fine. I love this knife. I've had it for years. This is another Walmart purchase. I remember it was $40 at the time. It's probably gone up. But I saw that my Walmart in my area, which for a long time eschewed knives altogether. It's like you could barely get a case knife, or not a case, but a Buck slip joint there. They've re-upped. They've got Civivis. They've got this back in stock. They've got those Swiss Tech knives. They got all sorts of stuff again at my right outside DC Walmart. Yeah, this one has great grip with all the knurling on the hard plastic handle. You probably can't tell just from looking, but it's not rubberized. It's a harder injection molded plastic handle. So I have some of these Ranger bands on it just for grip and drawing. This sheath here is aftermarket. It comes with a very nice nylon sheath, and you don't hear me say that often either. I don't tend to like the nylon sheaths. Comes with a great nylon sheath. And then something that you see on a lot of SOG knives, especially the earlier ones, is just a slight relief there on the tip. They call it the shark's tip, I think, shark tooth tip or something like that. But makes for excellent penetration, and not for nothing, it would be great in a back cut flicking motion. Again, I keep a lanyard on this one so that I can wrap it like so if I need to, and it's not going to come out of my hand like that. That's the SOG Seal Pup, and it's highly recommended. Okay, next up, this one is from Sencut. Sencut is the budget brand of Civivi, which is the budget brand of We. And this thing is great. This was I'm going to shoot this sheath off probably because they have great sheaths, but this was bought for me by my awesome brother-in-law, James. He got this for me several Christmases ago, or maybe it was birthdays. I'm pretty sure it was Christmas though. And this is the Waxahachie, and it is a great little budget clip point blade. And by budget, I mean it's over $50, but still, it is awesome. And it rides very nicely with this sheath. That's an aftermarket clip I put on there, horizontally front on the belt. I love it. That's 9CR 18 MOV. 9CR 18 MOV. Sorry, I had to say it in my head. You got a beautiful clip point blade there. And I like how this clip point, unlike, say, the 119 or the SOG, Mac V SOG designs, it puts the tip low down. It's not an upswept clip point. It's a descending clip point, almost like a Saks or a Warncliffe in a way. But you have a nice continuous belly from choil to tip, and then a low point. And why do I like the low point? The low point is great for utility. If you're cutting something using that tip, doing a draw cut, you don't have to change the angle of your handle too much, or of your wrist too much, to get that point where you want it to go. So I do like a low pointed Bowie knife or clip point blade, and this definitely fits the bill. You got a nice run of jimping there that is perfect. It engages well, but it's not uncomfortably sharp. It really will grip your handle, or I mean, it really will grip your thumb or your forefinger. And then the handle has these 3 speed holes, which are great for changing grip. It's hard to do a little bit under the camera, especially with my left hand, but I like it for this purpose. I like speed holes because you can kind of pinch them and flip the blade around and be sure that it's not going to fall out of your hand. And then in this case, it comes with a black blade, or it comes in this nice satin and a number of different handle materials. I always said I was going to dye this one because it's that neutral G10, but I just kind of leave it. I also like the look of that jade. Very nice looking clip point blade. That is the Sencut Waxahachie. Great sheath fitment. And we Sencut Civivi. And I can't even actually put we in this conversation because I don't think we does any fixed blades. I know that their knives are awesome, but they're not quite my taste. They're a little extravagant in ways that don't appeal to me, but their Civivis and their Sencuts really do. And Civivi and Sencut has some outstanding fixed blade knives. All right, next up, one of my favorite of the bunch here is the Station 9 Sear knife. Sear, S-E-R-E, survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. And this is a knife for those purposes. It's a great outdoors knife. This is 1095 blade steel, so very tough steel, easy to resharpen, good edge retention. But look at that clip point blade. I'm going to show it off with the SOG for a second. Something I really like about the clip on these two knives is how high the swedge comes. The swedge comes all the way back nearly to the handle on both of these. And that keeps the blade nice and thin in cross section the whole way as you're thrusting. This knife makes an incredible thruster. And I say that only having jammed it into large pieces of cardboard stacked on one another, but it glides through. And I have to believe that softer materials it's going to excel at. You've got contoured G10 handle scales there. Beautiful color. I love that dark green. So nice. Of course, I have these Ranger bands. I went Ranger band happy for a while. You've got 2 pass-through nuts here, so you can remove the handles and clean underneath if it gets wet or anything like that. But you can also create a little D-ring with paracord and wrap it around the outside of your wrist, outside of your hand, if that is something you want. So basically, the paracord comes out here, goes in there, your hand slips under it, and then you have a piece of paracord really holding this in, and you can kind of open your fingers and do other stuff. I was talking with a dad of one of my daughter's volleyball teammates, and he was a Marine and did a lot of specialized stuff, and he went to SEER school. So in between games this past weekend, I was interrogating him, and he could take it because he went to SEER school. No, I was asking him all about SEER school and his experiences, and it sounded amazing. Very cool. Not for me. I am not SEER school tough, but very, very interesting to hear about the different things they do at SEER school. So very cool. So beautiful Station 9 SEER clip point blade here. Also with a nice Kydex sheath. I want to make sure it goes in the proper way. All right, next knife. This is also one that's issued to SEALs during training, is the SRK. You see this knife come up a bit here. I love the SRK, though I gotta say it's a mostly unused knife because it's not technically mine. This is technically my wife's. I keep it in my collection. I show it off a lot as if it's mine, but I don't really use it much. This one, I've had one in the past that I absolutely murdered, gave to my brother, but this one here has SK5 or what do they call it? Carbon V, not SK5. Sorry, Carbon V steel, and that is a real tough steel. This one was made around 2005 in the United States. You can see right there, made in the USA. Can't really see that on any cold steel knives anymore, except for the new one, the Republic, I think it's called, something like that. But most, if not all, cold steel knives besides that new fixed blade are made overseas now. This one is a clip point with that beautiful 0 ground swedge. So much like the Buck 119, in a pinch, this would make a great fighting knife because you have extreme penetration on the front. That's what they say about Bowie knives. They stab like a dagger, they cut like a drop point, and they chop like a cleaver. And so similar to a small Bowie-like knife in the clip point, with that 0 ground swedge, it's going to do all of those things pretty well. Now, of course, the chopping, it's a smaller blade. It's going to be a little less effective, but you can, it's got a nice long handle. You can cheat your way down. It's grippy. It's Coke bottle shaped, and it's knurled. You put a little fob in there, and you're going to be able to chop with this thing as well as you will any other 6-inch blade knife. This is the SRK, makes a great field knife. This one was featured in my field knife video recently, and makes an excellent, excellent clip point blade. So definitely check this out. They can be had for $40. Of course, you can also get it in 3V and pay a lot more. But if you can get by with, I think now it's in 43 blade steel. If you can manage to get by with that steel, which most of us probably can, you can get this or the compact version. That's the SRKC for like stupid inexpensive, like under $40 for the large one and like about $30 for the C model. So I highly recommend it, especially if you're someone who's really into folders, don't have many fixed blades or no fixed blades, and you kind of want to get your feet wet. You cannot go wrong with the SRK because it's going to last you. It's going to last you. Let me put it that way. All right. Next up, this one is a little bit fancy. This is a Bark River knife. And you can see it's similar to the Bowie knife I put out here to say we're not talking about Bowies. So beautiful antique stacked leather handle here. I love this knife. When this came out, I don't know, it just captured my imagination. I always say, oh, this is the knife that the 1930s American father wore camping. I know that's kind of a very specific reference, and I don't know where it actually comes from, but that's just kind of a feeling I have. Beautiful leather sheath, as they all come with. Bark River knives have beautiful, beautiful leather sheaths. I love this feature that it flares out on the belt loop so that when you undo that retention tab, it fits behind the belt loop so you can take it in, take it in and out without cutting it. And, if you're using it on and off and taking it in and out, you don't have to keep fussing with the retention tab. It just kind of stays buried under there. So this one is in 3V, one of my few 3V steels, and I've used this quite a bit. You can see it. It's got some sap and stuff on there that's a little bit harder to remove, but one of these days I'll polish this up and make sure I get rid of all that stuff. I had a problem with the spacers here. I refastened them, but these spacers kind of come loose sometimes. I think it's because I've batoned with this a few times. Yeah, probably not the smartest idea, but at the same time, I was a little bummed to see that a little bit of batoning knocked those loose. But that no love lost with this knife. I'm still so psyched about it. Now, this kind of knife was the type of knife that led to the K-bar. A lot of guys in World War II, early World War II, were bringing hunting knives with them for fighting in theater, and they brought knives that looked a lot like this. And this style of knife with that fuller, the clip point, the stack leather handle, the butt cap, kind of evolved into what became the K-bar design, which I'll show you here in a second. Oh, spoiler alert. But this I love. 6 inches, 5 3/4 inches of 3V blade steel. Very, very sharp with the appleseed edge or convex edge, and a wonderfully ergonomic and comfortable handle with aluminum butt cap and quillions here, guard. So great knife. I see that the Boon 2 comes up every once in a while. They over there at Bark River Knives, they go through cycles where they release different models, and this comes up. This has been made at least once again since I bought this, and they not only have it in this stacked leather handle, but they have it in the Moran style handle, that sort of horse hoof sculpted, very comfortable handle. So you can get it both ways, but I feel like for this knife, you got to get the stacked leather. That's just how I feel. All right, second to last knife here, one you've seen me wax poetic about quite a bit lately because I love it. This is the Work Tough Gear Steadfast. This one, a Cal Richardson design. This was also in my, a number of these knives actually were in my field knife episode not too long ago. I guess a lot of the field knives I have are clip points, but this one has a long clip. I love the length of that clip there. It's got a downward angled edge there, pretty decent straight edge before it bellies out and then tapers up to that long point. But look at where the swedge meets the point. You have a long run there of just penetrative power. That's oftentimes what swedges are for. I mean, that's like pretty much what swedges are for. Oftentimes, when they're sharpened, they're also used for back cutting and that kind of thing. But in general, most people aren't getting in Bowie knife style fights, so that sharpened swedge is not as necessary. Here, it works great for penetration. This is in a steel I always forget. Let me look again. K329. Don't ask me about the steel. I do know it works well because I have it on my my V44, and I've pounded that through logs. So it's a very nice and seemingly tough steel. Takes a great edge, keeps a very great edge. And on this one, this is the second run of the Steadfast. They slimmed it out a bit, the blade stock, and made the edge a little bit higher, and it is incredibly sharp. This thing is like kind of ridiculously sharp. 5.5 inches of blade length and nearly 5 inches in handle length. It's so comfortable and makes a great field knife and a great, I think it would make a great fighting knife too, if heaven forbid you had to fight with it. So that is the Steadfast. It comes in the giant sheath. I'm conflicted about their sheaths. They do the job, which is hold the knife and retain it very well, but they almost retain too well, and they, I swear, are the size of Texas. They're huge, but if that's all I'm holding against this knife, that's a good thing because I can always make a sheath myself, or I could take this to a grinder and just reduce how much is going around the periphery. if I really wanted to, but I'm not going to. I might just make another sheath for it. All right, last up in this cavalcade of clip points is the classic, or the other classic of the group, and I mean true classic, and that is the K-Bar, the USMC Fighting Utility Knife K-Bar. This one my brother gave to me in the year, I believe it was 1991 or thereabouts. Maybe it was 93. Maybe he got it 93 for graduation. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the clip on this one, unlike the K-bars you will buy today, is not only curved, but it's also sharpened. So this is an actual sharp cutting swedge, and I love that. This is based on, this was a reissue of the original World War II K-bar design with the curved sharpened clip, and this is when it was kind of at least half a fighting knife and half a utility knife. Now it's much more of a utility knife, would work great in a pinch if you had to fight with it. But this was more following with the Bowie with that sharpened back edge. And you've got your stacked leather handle with the classic fluting along it. It is ovular. It's oval. I'll just say oval in cross section. So it's not going to turn in your hand, though it's rounded. Something I always thought curious about the design, the Quillians bend back. I always thought it would be cooler if they bent forward, but maybe you get more retention this way. I can't really tell. And then it's got the classic butt cap, where the butt cap fits over that rat tail tang, and then you get a pin going through the cap this way, so perpendicular to the tang. Something you don't see in too many knives, but you see it in this classic clip point. I love this knife. I have a number of K-bars that my brother has gotten me, but this one is probably still my favorite. Love this thing. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining me on this tour through my clip point blades. I have more of them, of course, definitely Bowies, and then a lot of clip points in the folder realm. But I think this sort of 7-inch to 5-inch clip point is a great place as an all-around knife. You can use it for all sorts of field duties, and then if worse comes to worse, you can use it to fight with. At least so I'm told, and so it seems. So check it out. Let me know what your favorite clip point blades are. Drop it in the comments below. Also, join us on Sunday, if you're watching this as it drops, for number 573, episode 573, with the great Joe Watson, a guy who really popularized fixed blade tactical carry. He's an awesome guy. I loved talking to him. I'm going to have him back on the show sometime. And man, I got to get one of his knives, if not more, in my collection. All right, for Jim working his magic behind the switcher, I'm Bob DeMarco saying until next time, don't take dull for an answer.
Thanks for listening to the Knife Junkie podcast. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and review at reviewthepodcast.com. For show notes for today's episode, additional resources, and to listen to past episodes, visit our website, TheKnifeJunkie.com. You can also watch our latest videos on YouTube at TheKnifeJunkie.com/YouTube. Check out some great knife photos on TheKnifeJunkie.com/Instagram, and join our Facebook group at TheKnifeJunkie.com/Facebook. And if you have a question or comment, email them to bob@TheKnifeJunkie.com or call our 24/7 listener line at 724-466-4487, and you may hear your comment or question answered on an upcoming episode of the Knife Junkie podcast.